Welcome to 2024 and the latest episode of Enterprising Minds. Happy New Year. Dave and Alex are present. So with the new year, we wanted to talk about ChatGPT, generative AI, and how that's impacted our productivity and how we get things done over the last 14 months that it's been around, and where we see it going. So we discussed a lot last year when it first hit. I think, the three of us last year, we were trying to make sense of it just like everybody else. And a lot of the predictions at the time may or may not have come true, but I think we're starting to get a much better sense of what's possible, even though some of the developments are still just mind-blowing, the stuff that you see every week. Like the recent Ethan Malik deepfake video, if you haven't seen those, where he's speaking Hindi, even though he doesn't speak that language. The video makes it perfect after only like a minute of upload training data. So that's crazy, what that's possible and what's potentially there. But I don't know, Alex, how have you been using generative? What have you played around with it? Is it part of your big workflows? Are you going to be doing more with it in 2024 than 2023? What you got?
Yeah, I guess first off, one of the trends that has stayed true, which is actually kind of just an amazing one, and I think it really kind of tells that we're still in that early part of that journey. It was just the last 2 days we're coming out. There's some new ideas of some new tests to try to test against AI systems, generative AI systems, because this has been a problem since the beginning. Every time they come up with a test, eventually sometimes meaning as low as like a month, the latest model succeeds at the test to 100%. Mm-hmm. So the test really is no longer useful to judge the next system after that, the next advancement after that, because they already hit 100 out of 100 and you're already done. So that's always been a funny thing at the beginning. Like people were talking about the GMAT and the AP test and AP Bio versus AP Math and these other tests, and saying like, okay, GPT, like how close to 100% are we getting? And the problem is it started hitting 100 and then had to come up with new tests. So it's just pretty funny that we're still in that trend, still coming up with new exams to basically try to throw against these tools because they're defeating everything we could think of, which is amazing. Getting down to how I'm using it, it's a little all over the place, and I think we can talk about a little bit and kind of where it's going. I think it'll start to kind of creep into my life a little bit more as the technology advances. So usage to date, of course, playing around with GPT, ChatGPT, the GPT store that just released this last week, and trying some of those. Basically public GPTs that are out there. So it's people's ideas and kind of preset prompts so that the system responds in a certain way. There's one in particular that I was just playing around with yesterday that was all trails. They was talking about, you can say what location, and then you want a dog-friendly trail and less than 3 miles and like not too many hills or something, and it'll come up with a whole list of different ones with some photos and links and stuff like that to different parks and trails near you that could be fitting for you and stuff like that. So
that'd be cool.
Random ones like that. There's quite a few that have really thrown a lot of evidence toward how people have been using the systems and what basically audiences have been really using these systems. So heavy into programming, creation of programming code, as well as checking against it, and then content creation, SEO content creation, blog style content creation. There's a lot of kind of like website-based content creation. I haven't seen as much with the way of like ebooks yet, but given the capabilities of systems, they're definitely in the ebook like length possible. When it, 14 months ago, it was not. That was very, very short kind of text coming out of it. Now you can. Right. So I think we'll see this population shift as well of what these things are good at and what they can produce in the future. So I can get through some other little random examples and stuff like that. But what about you, Dave? Let's hit you first.
Yeah. So with the GPTs, I remember watching the OpenAI, well, the now infamous Developer Day, where they announced the GPTs, and that was actually the catalyst for me to pay for the open or the ChatGPT subscription. And I actually built one exclusively for the post-production of this podcast, and it is unreal. So the podcast that I would do or started with a friend in the pandemic, doing it the hard way, the old way, it would be, recording the video that was, and 30 minutes an hour, if not more, because, pre-post discussion. Then I would have to do the editing, the touch-ups, all of that, and then would send that off to a transcription company where I'd have to pay per minute, for the actual things. And they were good enough, but they were never awesome. But it was better than me spending like 8 hours listening and typing it out, which I tried a couple times and just said no. So that whole process was like 2 weeks an episode, just because I've got a family, I've got a day job, I've got, all these other things going on that, okay. So it's, wasn't my primary thing, but now that instead of 2 weeks, I can do it in 4 hours. And most of that is waiting for the video editor to bounce things and that's essentially it. And I have a lot of the repurposing. I've played around a lot with different ways to repurpose things. But it's been fascinating to see how to test things, test hypotheses of SEOs in terms of content creation and content repurposing that you see a lot in the content marketing kind of best practice blogs or whatever else. But testing those things and actually seeing them work. But being able to do it basically as like a solo creator on the post-production side, right? It's astonishing the amount of output that can be done now, especially when you start building the different tool stacks, not just the text-based stuff, but then also, the automated video clipping that's available now. Unreal. You can make one giant pillar piece and then have 40 different assets within, an hour instead of what used to be a whole huge thing. I mean, you used to have go to an agency and pay for, a whole month or so just to get all that stuff, 10 years ago. I mean, if not more recently. So, yeah.
I was thinking actually it's more than 10 years now, but I was working for an agency, and because of the SEO benefits of a transcript were so great and continue to still be great, because basically instead of a video file, now you have a huge text file that's applied to this video file. So search engines now have text that they can basically match up. I used to do transcripts the manual way, and it was painful. They're just fairly short little YouTube videos, maybe 10 minutes most. Right. But trying to pull together the transcript by pausing, typing, playing, pause, type, play. No, rewind, check it, make sure it's right, because you got part of a sentence. You want to make sure that the full thing actually flows correctly, like you've written it correctly. You got to keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. And I was remembering, I was so jealous of this pedal thing that was available for people.
I was just going to ask you, did you have the pedals?
No, I didn't. And I was so jealous because I had to do these weird keyboard shortcuts that basically would pause the video and then flip over to what my text editor was that I was typing, because you have to timestamp everything as well.
Right.
To get it to basically appear on the screen at the right time. So it has to be timestamped with text and then the next timestamp with text. So like the milliseconds, so you have to basically key in all of those things. No, I didn't. And it was super frustrating because I would start like typing it out and then I had to go back and try to add all the timestamps back in. And I was jealous of the pedal thing that would basically, it was a foot pedal that you could tap and it would pause and then automatically like insert a timestamp into your text file and it would flip it back over so you can start typing and stuff. And then you could flip it back and forth and kind of do it more cleanly. But man, those pedals are going to go away. It's going to be a hard thing, man.
Totally.
No one's going to need those. The thing I was jealous of 10 years ago that's completely unnecessary today.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that because I've been working on a kind of behind the scenes thing. That's one of the things that people have asked. How are you producing this? With the day job and everything else. So that behind the scenes stuff is in the works, but I'll give you a little clue as to what's going on. But using the, I do not have a foot pedal, and what? Well, I do. I have many guitar pedals, but not
just not a transcript one.
Exactly. Yeah. No. So once I get the video and audio files out of my editor, I'm using Descript to get that transcript, and then Descript. I should say, at the time of this recording, we don't have any affiliation other than using Descript. So there's that. FCC, you can be happy. So I use Descript, and they've added a whole bunch of AI tools, which are wonderful. So not only does it identify the speakers, and I just type in the names of whose voice it is, and then it matches who's talking to the transcript. But then now you can insert chapters and timestamps automatically, and it will analyze the transcript and then insert headers, which are pretty close to what I would use for the chapter descriptions in YouTube anyway. And then it will write a YouTube summary right within there, and then I can just export everything and start with all the different templates that I built out for each episode, like any of the gimme script, like link to our socials and click subscribe and all those kind of things that are just templated. But then the fascinating use case is to take those transcripts, and even though I don't edit the transcripts after it's output by Descript, but then recently I started experimenting with taking those chapter titles and the transcript file and saying, insert these headers where appropriate in the transcript. And then it automatically puts those chapter titles into the transcript, so it has more of a blog format, which is great. I don't have to go through, because each episode of this is about 10 pages of text. So to go through 10 pages of text and 30 minutes to an hour of video to find the right timestamp, the right whatever, that's a huge process, and this can now do it dynamically. For a different project, I did do a side-by-side experiment of inserting the thing and just leaving the transcript as is with the section headers. But then I took the same thing and then did with the section headers in place, rewrite the transcript in a blog format rather than the pure transcript. And the results were pretty interesting, actually. Like, it stayed pretty close to what everybody was saying and like the gist of it, but you totally lost the voice of the individual within that. It became so bland that it was just like, well, the whole reason to have the individual speakers listed out is because we have 3 different personalities on this show. So we should keep that because that's part of the zest, But for big companies that are afraid of personalities, I could see that would be an amazing feature.
Sure.
Because the text would be mostly safe and on brand and, whatever else.
Yeah. I've always seen that as a difficulty with, and I'm sure it's something that will change, but with current large language model systems, how bland they are and the personalities that you can ask them to respond in are okay, but not fantastic. And then
unless it's Grok, and then it's just insulting. And
yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, you can do that with ChatGPT too. Actually, you can just prompt it, and it'll come back snarky. But the problem is, it becomes 100% snarky, like, which is funny for the first couple, but then after that, it just becomes the routine, and it kind of loses that touch, right? So I was thinking, like a comedian, like you have to flip back between different voices, you have to flip back between kind of slightly different personalities and kind of how you're pushing, or kind of more observational, but then you kind of push again, and you kind of go back and forth, and which keeps it interesting, which is a personality. It's more well-rounded than just single mode 100% of the time. I'm sure we'll see it soon, but it's not there yet. Like basically flipping prompts kind of throughout to create the personality or something greater. I don't know.
Yeah, well, and I know there are some creator types that have said, all right, here's all of my training data from all the stuff I've done publicly in 10 years. Here's my voice, create my brand voice on this or whatever. And there are certain AI tools like Writer, which is a nice AI tool, that is really in depth in brand voice style guidelines, like really tackles it from a brand and copywriting side of things, which is awesome. But it's also, I don't know, okay, so this is going to be a little side tangent. The tools that came out last year, I think it's going to be really hard for them to differentiate themselves enough as to why I shouldn't just pay the $20 to GPT, or, like Apple's releasing their AI without calling any of it AI. It's just a new OS update, and hey, voila, here you go. And with Bard and Gemini just being free to everybody, like that's pretty sweet. So I'll be curious to see what happens to those AI startups that had a good year in 23 while everybody was trying to figure out what the tools are and what is this thing? What do I want out of it? But what are your thoughts on that? Do you agree? Do you think they're going to be there's going to be a culling of the herd, or are they going to struggle to differentiate, or are they differentiated enough?
It's use cases. That's really what I've seen as the differences. Is basically, I mean, there are just a legion of tools that are standalone websites with 3 free searches, and after that they want you to hit it up for some kind of membership or usage cost or something like that. And what they all are basically is just a pre-recorded prompt and an API connection back to ChatGPT. So you type in whatever, it appends the prompt to it, it sends it to ChatGPT responds, and it connects it back, and it throws it back to you, all within their website, so it looks like it's their technology. And there's a ton of those. There's absolutely tons of those. I don't think those will last very long, and if they do, they'll basically be relegated down to free tools that may stick around for a little bit, but they'll get incorporated so fast into somebody else's because it's so easy to basically replicate what they're doing.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, their use case is a little unique, but you have a different mode or a different button or something, a different selector on your other tool, and now you've captured theirs within yours, and you can just keep on going. Like, I don't really see why you'd have to have it be standalone. There are certain use cases. I was actually kind of prepping this. We might talk about this in a later episode about gaming and AI, and where AI kind of fits and doesn't fit within video games and the larger kind of industry there. But there's one in particular that I thought was really cool. They got some great demos out there, but they're talking about NPCs. So that's non-playable characters. You play a character, runs into a town, and the shopkeeper is an NPC, or the random guards walking around are NPCs, right? They typically don't have a whole lot of personality to them. They have typically a few pre-recorded lines, and every time you interact with them, they say the same thing of like, "Hello, adventure. Here's what I have. Good day. Good luck."
It was like the announcers in Madden. They've got like 10 lines they use all the time.
And once you've heard them, there's always one that's like sticks out or is annoying.
Yep.
It's always like, oh, come on.
That play wasn't even that good. Yeah.
Or there's some, meme that gets stuck around them, they're getting an arrow to the knee, an old Skyrim reference or something like that just sticks around for the longest time. Like just random lines that just kind of stay kind of pertinent. But the cool thing was this system was about giving NPCs a AI background, a generative AI background, so that they can come up with a little bit more personality. They can have a little bit more of a personality-driven story, even to like at least be interesting and unique each time you talk to them, especially if they're like, a partner that follows you everywhere and they keep responding and keep talking all the time. Like at least having new dialogue would be great. But it becomes very, very difficult because you also want to control that situation as much as possible too. You don't want this follower who might be following your character and helping you carry your goods as you adventure around. You don't want them getting to have too much personality or go in some weird direction. Like they go into a very dark direction, they try to murder you in your sleep or something. Like you can't go that far. You can't be not brand safe as well. You can't go that far. So if you're prompting or talking to them, you have to somehow put controls around that. And that's really what this company was all about, is trying to do all of those systems and try to make it some way that it runs quickly on people's systems so that it doesn't slow down the game experience as well. So there was a whole lot to it. Yes, it was generative AI at its core, but there were so many other elements that it started basically becoming a very, very complex thing that totally is worth a separate company from OpenAI, right? That's what I'm trying to create these tiers of, you have this baseline technology systems like OpenAI, Gemini, Apple, Bing, everybody's got basically kind of their own homebrew kind of system now, Amazon, Grok, and all the rest of those. But then you have these tack on quick hit, play around experimental kind of almost playground tools that basically are just like basic prompts on top of it that just give you some use cases to play around with it. But then you have the next tier up. And that tier, I think, is what we're going to see a lot more development of. And actually, I think that gets into a good conversation about where we see these going next.
Right.
Is basically kind of going down that line. And I'll hold on that for a second. What do you think?
No, I think you're right. I think that getting AI and the regulations to play nicely makes a lot of sense. I think healthcare, there's a lot of use cases with that. Patient data is a problem though. But my God, even if you could automate some of the customer service and scheduling things with that would be a win.
Billing support. Yeah, there's a lot there. That'd be nice.
There's so much there. Yeah. We need smarter fax machines. We don't need.
Right. If there was ever some system that when you called up a phone line, it says, please listen to our options because our options have changed. Right. Because I needed to hear that every single time. And also, why do I care? Do you really think I call in this often that I would notice the difference?
It is a persuasion technique to get you to actually pay more attention because most people fall asleep before they answer the call.
Yeah. Or buy them time so they can answer your call in the next available representative.
Yep. So I'm interested to see whether or not the vertical plays work out or not. But then there's a lot of research that's showing these larger open models are actually outperforming the smaller vertical ones, which I think is really fascinating. And with anything, there's the potential and there's the desire and then there's reality. So I don't think that.
I don't think they've said enough with AI.
Oh
Yes,
God, yeah.
that's true.
Well, I mean, just any Microsoft product. Let's be honest. I like Microsoft a lot. Their demo videos are great, and then you go, oh, but wait, I thought I could do this, and like, no, we haven't developed that yet. But it's a great video.
Yeah, yeah,
um, yeah. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
yeah.
I do think some industry vertical things will take up, but I mean, even just some of the stuff that um, in terms of marketing, I think the CRM companies are in the best position, honestly, to take advantage of the tools because they have so much data coming in across the customer journey if the companies are using them correctly. You know, that's a huge
Yeah,
if.
yeah,
We know most aren't.
right.
But the opportunity there is amazing to be able to say, like, I want to create a personalized experience for this segment of my audience that is our top performer or our top customers. We know we need to get 6 blogs and 2 social posts in front of somebody before they go to a webinar, and then 20% of our webinar people, you know, convert within 6 months. So great, let's start, let's start helping them see more of the content to get them through that process.
Yeah,
But all of it is companies getting their data together and data aligned and tool stacks redone so that they can actually, take advantage of some of the automations. Depending on the company size, we know that's going to take a lot longer than we would hope, but yeah, I don't know.
yeah.
That's
No,
kind
I
of where
mean,
I'm at now, at least.
yeah, audience selection as well. So, actually, getting back to your earlier question of how I've been using it in a more work informed way, I can't say that I've used it straight onto work. There's a whole lot of regulations and where I work and stuff like that. So, there's a lot of limits there. But for general work education, actually, it was over kind of the holiday break. I was playing around a lot with GBT and asking it questions about the size of different basically professions that my company's been targeting in different countries, and then trying to get a better understanding of basically what the global audience sizing, market size, landscape was looking like. Advancements basically in different areas, number of different types of professions and subspecialties in different areas by population, by per capita kind of figures as well. Right. Looking at kind of geographic rankings of continent versus continent kind of things, stuff like that. It was fascinating. And it was a really good way for me to have a very conversational way to pull in a lot of data. And the way I prompts and the like set up, it was pulling from government data from these different countries and surfacing it about this very specific topic basically right back to me. And then on top of that, occasionally there'd be these numbers where it's like there's a ratio of this profession for this particular subspecialty in this industry and per capita and all the rest. So it would start doing the math as well. So then I could get some actually like charts and rank order and data out of it.
Right.
It was eye-opening and it was absolutely fantastic because it's a project that I've been focused on for quite some time, about talking about total addressable markets and looking at those sizing data and actually where's the opportunity, where's the value, what's the best play for us, and kind of where we want to go. And looking things at a very global, large perspective is difficult. It's a ton of data. It's a ton of specialties. It's a ton of different, typically teams and markets and different products even that would fit for the different markets because there are different use cases. Like it gets very, very complex very fast, which means it's really hard to pull this kind of stuff together. But I was basically making it like my mini research intern basically for me. Right. And it was being able to pull together that information for me. And that was probably one of the best use cases so far that I've seen that like really, really is close to work kind of informed way without generating copy or generating content that I would actually be using in a work setting.
Right. My main use case for it really is, okay. So everybody has days like this where you have to write an email to somebody and you're just not in the mood to be writing anything to anybody. And so for me, that is where I've actually found a secondary benefit of all the AI stuff is that the dictation in Microsoft Word has gotten 1,000 times better to the point where I am no longer typing. So my productivity has soared for the sheer fact that I don't have to type.
Oh, wow.
So I have, I have this nice little microphone that's always right here. And it's tied into whatever computer I'm using. So then I just record me talking about a particular topic or a first draft of an email. And the nice thing is I can say what I really want to say. And then there's the edited version of what I'm going to say, depending on the situation.
Sorry, there's this TikTok, very, very popular TikToker, right? But basically, it's always these same questions of, how do I say in a corporate way?
Yeah.
Why don't you read my emails? My gosh, the answer was there. Reread my stupid email. And then she'll respond back with like, per my last email. Da, 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 da,
Exactly.
And it always ends up being like, oh, that is a really nice way to basically say, reread the lines below my signature, you moron. But
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, to have something edit and rewrite that.
Yeah. And I will just say for disclosure, I almost always edit the stuff that comes out of GPT, mostly because I know exactly the way I talk versus the way that I write, because I'm a nerd and I pay attention to that stuff. And so no matter what it produces, it would sound disingenuous if I just sent it verbatim. But to get that feedback of, just help me write this email. Here's what I want to say. Ask follow-up questions. Find holes in my thinking that could make it better, to get the point across more clearly. That kind of thing, where it's here's what you could do to keep it more focused, to keep it on point, to keep it more clear, or if you get lost in tangents, it's really nice to be able to have it extract like the one sentence that's usually pertinent in a tangent, and then use it as supporting evidence without overtaking the conversation or overtaking your point. So that to me has been really beneficial, because it's just been like, okay, I know I have to email like 20 people today. I don't want to write 20 emails, but if I was having a conversation with them in the hallway, I could totally do this. But since I'm not in the hallways anymore, let me just talk it out and then edit it down to the format that, the channel that it's going to, which, in this case is email.
Dave, without let's hold on a minute, the connections to different databases and systems for data. Do you think you could create a GPT, Dave? Like a corporate brand standard, like knowing the tools that the content that you've written, all these sent emails, all the, these episodes as, basically fodder to create this brand standard. Could you create a corporate brand standard well enough that you could input an email request, and by adding in some extra prompt to it of saying, respond as a content marketer with 15 years of experience, all these kind of elements to it, plus use, of course, the Dave brand standard voice. Could you just paste in the email request and come back with a response that you think would be, let's say, 80% there?
Yes. And I know this because one of the tools that we mentioned has a brand voice generator, and you can
that's what I was picking up on.
yeah, so then you can say, do you want to respond in this voice or this voice or this? So like you could have them respond in like a James Bond voice if you wanted, and it would come out that way. But the thing with that though, it was really funny actually. So I did an analysis of that just for my own research, right?
Of course, but yes.
Here are a bunch of articles that I've done, transcripts of things where I'm talking.
Yeah.
Give me a list of like how you would describe the brand voice. And some of the stuff that came back, I'm like, I'm going to have to change some of those.
It's good. Like, self-reflection there.
Yeah. I was like, me naturally, okay.
Well, I was thinking
personal development goal for
yeah. Well, I was thinking some of your written work of just taking all your sent emails, because you're talking about the difference between, and it's true. I mean, my verbal standard, if you want to call it that, versus my written standard is different. Absolutely. There's in my emails, there's salutations almost every single time. I mean, there's stuff like that, which it'd be weird to say that every single time. So there's things like that. I mean, that's a very obvious and minor one, but yeah, I'm sure my text method and syntax is different. So,
but it's also one of those things where everybody likes to talk about the whole huge, like, oh my God, AI is going to be this economy killer. But on a day-to-day, reducing the number of paper cuts that you have to endure is really the most beneficial thing you can do in your work life. I think it would be relatively easy, especially with all the optional extras. Most people aren't using any tool to its full thing. But like creating templates for the typical responses, or, if some urgent request comes in, but you're in the middle of something else, you could just do your keyboard shortcut for hey, I'm in the middle of something, I'll get to it when I'm available. That kind of thing. That makes it easier. A lot of that depends on corporate culture. Like, God forbid, you have 270 Slack messages that you have to respond to. But AI, even with that now, is summarizing what you've missed, to get up to speed more quickly so that you don't have to jump every time the thing pings.
That would be so helpful. Sorry to interrupt, but there's so many meetings that the phrase could have been an email. It applies simply because of what my use case and where my interest and where my knowledge of this lies, is that I'm fine being an observer in this particular meeting, but I'm not really going to have an active participant role. But I would love to see just a transcript and not be there for the full hour. Like it's almost like I need another option when I get a meeting invite to be like, I'll attend, like tentative based upon my schedule. No, but please send me the transcript. And no, I will not make it. Like cancel. Like,
right.
I want that.
There are AI agents that are doing that. You can set up and do that, and it will send you the important notes for that. And I've heard a number of people who are doing webinars frequently that there are more and more of these bots showing up, and it identifies itself. It says, hello, I am here on behalf of so-and-so. So like on the one hand, you're looking at your attendance thing and you're like, sweet, we've got X number of people. This is going to be great. And then you're in the middle of presenting and you're like, 20 real people are here and 1,800, bots are on.
I see that on Twitter all the time. Like whenever someone does like a big information dump, like follow these steps to do whatever, and it's useful. It's like save to whatever, and you basically can tag in, and it's astounding how many of the comments are the exact same. Save to whatever. Hey, this, save to this. Hey, this, save to this, and it's like just you get like 5 real comments and just dozens of people who are just like, yeah, save it to my other device or save it to my other system. I'll read it later, summarize it later. Like,
Which this is one of the thoughts that I've been spending a lot of time with.
Yeah. Do you take it personal or not?
Oh, well, 100% I would, because that's just me and my thing to get over.
Yeah, it's like I would too. Eventually I guess I got to get over that, but yeah.
It's so disrespectful. Like, I'm here trying to provide good things for you, and you are disrespecting me by not showing up.
Or like 200 characters. Like, come on.
Right. And yeah, I know a bunch of people will take issue with that stance, but the thing that I think is the problem, and I mean, we've talked about this in a number of different things, of people automating, save this particular piece of information to this other thing so that I can summarize it and then claim that I know it. And that, like, the depth of knowledge is what's important, right? Not that you are capable of learning everything, or you can showcase that you've learned a whole bunch of stuff, but really, honestly, with AI being in place, like the floor has risen to a higher standard.
Sure.
But in order to get above that average now, in terms of content creation, in terms of, getting people to listen to you even, or take your ideas seriously, they now have to be above what the standard person would do, which is why one of my first thoughts when the things came out was all of the hard things are now more important. The people who are willing to show up on video and go to things in person, they're going to be the ones that have an outsized advantage, because there's trust in human connection. There's the authenticity that people they talk about a lot, but they don't actually do the work for it. Like, you have to show up and you have to stand for something if you're gonna, get that authenticity label, and you will turn some people off, and that's fine, right? Yeah. Segmenting your marketing to the addressable audience. That is what marketing is. So yeah, I think there's a cultural thing, and there's going for the wrong metric with this automate everything. And I don't need to show up because I can just look at a summary. Like, I've always had a problem with the get abstract idea for that very reason. If you're not willing to, like, at least start and sit with the ideas in a book or a presentation or something, you're not going to learn from it. Yeah, sure, you'll get high level concepts, but you're not going to have that depth of knowledge, or you won't be able to put together analogies or relate it to your life or somebody else's during conversations. You'll just be saying, oh, I read the abstract of this particular thing, I think it applies, this way, but there's no depth there.
Yeah. That's really funny. That was the exact example I was coming up with. I was thinking of that because I'm reading a book right now on finding inner peace, and it's a philosophical book, but it is extremely difficult read. Mm-hmm. Very short book, but man, does it take a lot of effort to kind of get through it. Right. However, that's how you learn a really in-depth, difficult, and also personalized topic, is by sitting with it, of understanding it, of really kind of thinking through it, not just reading the words and just reading, the Harry Potter story and learning the Harry Potter story, but instead of reading something that you're like trying to in-depth apply to yourself, you need to read it, comprehend it, interpret it for yourself, think through it, and then keep on reading. And it's like, if someone gave me the spark notes of that book or the get abstract of that book, it would be, 3 lines. Like, there really wouldn't be maybe a whole lot to it in terms of that, but reading the book is an entirely different experience. I mean, you could probably say the same thing if someone summarized, all of Harry Potter into a paragraph. It would not be enjoyable, would not be fun. Yes, you would understand the concept, but you lost the pleasure of it. Like you just forgot the point of reading the book.
Right. Well, and to that point too, I mean, it's a serious topic, but we joke about it. If we were to actually summarize most of the advice doctors give in the healthcare field, it's a 3-line output: exercise more, eat more veg, stop eating dairy.
Yeah. Stop smoking, doing alcohol, whatever.
Right.
Or they're difficult.
Yeah.
Like stop doing the things that are harming you. Keep doing the things that are good for you.
Right. And what do we know about all of it? Everybody goes, yeah, doc. And then they walk out and they go to Dunkin', to reward themselves for getting through the checkup. Like that's
yeah.
Like, yeah, there's the issue there. And I don't think it's going to be any better, but I do think the opportunity are for the people that actually show up and create those connections and stand for something.
That's absolutely true.
But it's easy to say that, but to actually do that and to not have that self-doubt or the imposter syndrome or whatever, that is hard. It is really hard. But it is so totally worth it.
Yeah. I think of it also like talking about like hitting the easy button with AI. I mean, there's a line between the difference between spammers and marketers.
Yeah.
There's ethical lines, there's legal lines, policy, platform, country law, whatever. There's a whole lot there as well. There's a whole lot of barrier between those two populations. But a big difference between the two is one is trying to do the easiest route, the least amount of effort, and basically just spam the heck out of 1 million people because I was able to scrape 1 million email addresses.
Right.
Versus the marketer who, as to your earlier point, finds their market, segments it, talks to that audience, develops a persuasive argument, sends it specifically to these people who are going to be interested because they know that this is a population that's going to want this particular good or service. Like there is so much effort that is done before that email gets sent. And the spammer, there's so little effort that is done before that email is sent. And that's the difference between someone who is the professional versus someone who is like the imitator. And the AI systems, I think, just raise the level up, but it also makes the imitations so much easier to do.
Right.
Which as consumers then will probably develop our attitudes again further up, that we won't respond to the random chain email that says, send this to 10 people to have good luck this year, or some silly thing like the old chain letters of old that used to exist that are gone now. But I'm sure there's going to be a new version that we'll eventually get rid of as well.
Yep. There will always be snake oil.
Yeah.
It will just be very different forms.
And smart audiences to deal with it.
One would hope. One would hope.
Yeah, I heard actually there's a really bad stat talking about like the spammers that it was like 1 in 1 million. If 1 in 1 million purchased, it was profitable. Like the numbers are really, really bad. But then you're like, my gosh, really? Who's buying these terribly worded, typo heavy emails selling, medications that obviously should be prescription only or something like that? It's like, there's one person out there, they're sending money and you gotta be kidding me. Stop. Right. For the rest of us.
God. Anyway, that's a weird spot to stop, but unfortunately we have to stop there.
Don't spam. Be good to your people. Care about your audiences. Do the hard work.
Absolutely.
That's a better.
Absolutely. With the full knowledge of every general practice doctor that more than half of you won't do that. Anyway, thank you all for hanging out with us. Thank you for listening in 2023. We just got done doing sort of a year-end review on the stats. So shout out to Frankfurt. We see you. Top city for downloads. So that's been awesome. maybe I'll have to learn more about Germany and marketing in German. For that could be some interesting conversations. So reach out, let us know how you're using AI. Did any of the examples we talk about spark anything? Email is in the description notes. And as always, you can find the transcript and links to everything on davedohertymedia.com and Enterprising Minds. So with that, hope your new year is off to a great start. We will see you in 2 weeks with the next episode of Enterprising Minds. Take care.
Thanks all. Bye.